You know, physical retail has one massive advantage over e-commerce. When a customer walks up to a traditional cash register and hands you a $20 bill, there is absolute undeniable certainty. The drawer opens, it goes ding, the money is physically in your hand, and you know exactly what happened.
Right, a clean, indisputable transaction.
Yeah.
And we desperately want our digital business metrics to function with that exact same level of clarity.
But they don't. I mean, you wire up a Shopify store with Google Tag Manager expecting that reliable ding for every sale, and instead you get just a cacophony of alarms. Your
Yep.
marketing dashboard says you made 20 sales, but your actual bank account says you made 12. Half your data is actively lying to you.
Oh yeah, we are navigating the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters here. And the stakes couldn't be higher. If your tracking is bloated or duplicated or just broken, you are feeding garbage data to incredibly powerful advertising algorithms.
Wow.
You might as well be, throwing your marketing budget into a furnace.
Yeah, and that furnace is exactly what we are going to help you avoid today. We are doing a deep dive into a really comprehensive 21-minute technical guide from June 18th, 2026. It is essentially the definitive manual on how to install Google Tag Manager or GTM on a Shopify store without blowing up your tracking or your checkout process.
It really is.
So whether you own a store, run marketing campaigns, or you're just fascinated by the invisible plumbing of the digital economy, this deep dive is going to save you from some spectacularly expensive mistakes.
It's basically an architectural blueprint. But before we get into the weeds of how to build this machinery, we need to clarify what we actually mean when we talk about digital tracking.
Right, because we throw around the word pixel a lot in this space.
Yeah.
People hear pixel and they think of like a tiny square image on a screen.
Yeah, exactly.
But a tracking pixel isn't an image anymore. Think of it as an invisible digital tripwire that you place across the doorway of your website. When someone walks in, the tripwire snaps, and a little signal is sent back to Google or Meta saying, hey, someone is here, and they just looked at a red shirt.
I love that. That tripwire analogy is perfect because the very first reality check the source material gives us is about how we manage those wires. People treat Google Tag Manager as if it's a strategy all on its own.
Well, for sure.
They assume installing GTM automatically organizes their messy analytics. But GTM is just a container. It is literally an empty box. It does absolutely nothing until you purposefully put rules and tripwires inside it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the guide lays out a really specific decision matrix to help you figure out if you even need that empty box in the first place. You don't just blindly install it.
Right. No, you definitely shouldn't.
You have the native channel, the hybrid setup, and the server-side path. If you are running a straightforward store, maybe you just need Google Analytics 4 and some basic Google Ads. Shopify's native Google channel handles that out of the box.
Yep, natively.
Using GTM for that basic level of tracking is like renting a massive commercial warehouse to store a single bicycle.
That is, it introduces so many unnecessary points of failure. That native channel is designed to be invisible and low maintenance. The pivot to a hybrid setup where you actually need GTM happens when your marketing stack expands.
Like when you add more ad platforms.
Exactly. Say you are running campaigns across Meta, TikTok, maybe you have a robust affiliate program, and you need to track highly specific custom behaviors that go beyond just viewing an item or buying it.
So you want a centralized, controlled layer where your marketing team can manage all those different tripwires without having to beg a web developer to alter the website's core code every Tuesday.
Right, precisely. The distinction here, though, is that while the GTM software is technically free to use, the operational reality is anything but. The guide highlights a brutal misconception about the DIY route. Business owners think a custom GTM build is free simply because Google doesn't charge a monthly subscription for the interface.
I see this constantly. But the source points out the staggering hidden costs, right? Building a robust DIY setup takes, a week or two of incredibly focused, highly technical effort.
Oh, easily. And then you have the ongoing nightmare of quality assurance every single time you update your Shopify theme or install a new app.
Yeah, that free setup is why so many businesses eventually surrender and pay anywhere from like $145 to $650 a month for specialized tagging apps like Analyzify or Elevar, or they drop 10 grand on an agency build. I mean, if the DIY path is quote unquote free, Why do so many businesses end up paying hundreds of dollars a month for these apps?
Because you aren't buying JavaScript code when you hire an agency or install a premium app. You are buying governance. You are paying for someone else to maintain the structural integrity of those tripwires.
Ah, governance. That makes sense.
Yeah. The source offers a brilliant litmus test for this. If you are looking at a tag and you cannot name its destination, the specific event that triggers it, the legal consent rule governing it, and the person in your company responsible for it, it has absolutely no business being in your container.
Wow, that is a strict rule. So let's assume you pass that litmus test. You have the complexity, you have the ad platforms, you commit to GTM, you pull up a YouTube tutorial from a couple years ago, grab your GTM code snippet, and get ready to paste it on every single page of your store.
Stop right there. The guide literally screams at us to stop. Doing that in 2026 will fundamentally break your store.
Wait, really? Break it?
It is dangerously obsolete. Shopify's architecture has fractured into two distinct environments. GTM is allowed, but it is strictly split now.
Okay, so the storefront is essentially the public lobby of your building.
Yeah.
Anyone can walk around with a clipboard, which represents our GTM code. You duplicate your theme.liquid file, paste one piece of code in the head, another in the body, and you are actively tracking the home page, the product pages, the cart.
Right.
But the checkout is a secure bank vault. It's an isolated sandbox, and that clipboard is confiscated at the door. You cannot paste GTM there.
What's fascinating here is the engineering philosophy behind that vault. Shopify introduced these lax and strict sandboxes, which they power through their Web Pixels APR and customer events system for a very specific reason.
Which is
Security and stability. Think about the user experience. When a customer is typing in their credit card number, you cannot have a poorly optimized third-party marketing script from a GTM container subtly crashing the complete order button.
Oh, that would be a disaster.
Or worse, quietly skimming personal data. The goal isn't to force GTM everywhere. It's to send reliable signals to the right places.
It protects the transaction at all costs, which means we really have to pour one out for checkout.liquid. For years, that was the singular file developers used to hack custom tracking into the final steps of a sale.
Yeah, it is entirely a relic now.
Yeah.
The guide is emphatic about this. Checkout.liquid was deprecated for info, shipping, and payment pages back in 2024. And Shopify hammered the final nail in the coffin by sunsetting it for thank you and order status pages on August 28, 2025. Treat any tutorial mentioning it as totally outdated. If a blog post tells you to inject code there, close the tab immediately. You have to rely on Shopify's modern checkout extensibility.
But wait, if the checkout is a locked bank vault and our GTM clipboard isn't allowed inside, how on earth does Google know a purchase actually happened? Isn't the purchase the most important metric of the entire operation?
It is the defining metric.
Yeah.
And ironically, because of that intense security, tracking the actual moment a customer buys something becomes the most fragile part of the whole setup.
Really?
Yeah. Historically, developers just slapped a tracking script onto the final thank you screen and called it a day.
But human behavior completely ruins that approach. People refresh the page, they bookmark the order status link to check their shipping tracking the next morning.
Exactly. They leave the tab open on their phone browser for a week. Every single time that page reloads, the old tracking method would snap the tripwire again. A customer checking their shipping status 3 times a week just told Google Analytics they bought that same pair of shoes 3 separate times.
Yikes. So it causes massive data duplication.
Massive. So purchases must be tracked via Shopify's checkout event stream using standard events like checkout_completed. Deduplication is vital here. 1 order equals 1 GA4 purchase and 1 ads conversion.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If I am a store owner who tried to cobble this together myself, maybe I uninstalled a tracking app but left some code behind, I turned on Shopify's native Google channel, and I built my own custom GTM container.
A recipe for disaster.
Right. So those 3 systems are running simultaneously. I sell 1 actual shirt. Am I basically telling my advertising platforms I sold 3?
You are. That is the most common, expensive mistake businesses make. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. Google Ads sees 3 conversions for 1 real sale, assumes its targeting algorithm is performing brilliantly, and starts aggressively optimizing your ad spend based on entirely fabricated revenue.
Oh man, you end up paying a massive financial tax on your own disorganized data.
Exactly. To stop that hemorrhage, the guide leans heavily on deduplication. We have to achieve this by passing a stable transaction underscore ID, which is usually the Shopify order ID, to GA4 and Google Apps.
So that transaction ID acts like a bouncer. Google Ads sees order number 1005 come in from the native channel. A millisecond later, your GTM setup tries to send order 1005 again.
Right.
Google recognizes the duplicate ID and simply drops the second signal. And the same logic applies if you're running meta ads, right? If you send a signal from the browser and another from a backend server, you pass a matching event underscore ID so Meta can merge them into a single reality.
It is the only way to maintain a source of truth. But it requires relentless vigilance. The source warns extensively about ghost pixels.
Ghost pixels.
Yeah, a store owner uninstalls a tagging app because it was too expensive, but the app leaves remnants of its code behind in the web pixels area, or as a hidden theme extension.
Oh, that's sneaky.
It really is. You have to forensically audit your setup to ensure those ghosts aren't secretly inflating your numbers in the background. You have to audit leftovers to ensure deduplication beats installation.
Okay, so we've hunted down the ghosts and stopped the double counting. We've got the storefront lobby talking to the checkout vault properly. But tracking is no longer just a technical challenge. The guide dedicates a huge portion to the legal layer, which basically overrides the code.
Oh, completely. The privacy landscape has completely rewired the mechanics of the internet. For any traffic coming from the European Economic Area or the UK, Google's Consent Mode v2 is not a suggestion or a best practice. It is a strict mandate.
And it is so much more than that annoying banner at the bottom of the screen where we all just hit accept all to get it out of the way.
Right.
It fundamentally alters how the browser behaves under the hood.
It really does. It acts as an absolute gatekeeper for 4 specific data signals. Analytics underscore storage, ad underscore storage, ad underscore user underscore data, and ad underscore personalization.
Okay, so those 4 signals.
Yes. In restricted regions, the framework demands that all 4 of those signals default to a denied state the very moment a user arrives.
The sequencing here is what trips people up, isn't it? The guide points out that these denied defaults must exist before any of your tripwires try to snap.
Exactly. Be fair.
If someone lands on your homepage and a page view signal fires off to Google Analytics a millisecond before the consent banner establishes that denied rule, you are violating the framework.
You've collected data under a false presumption of consent. The container must be configured so that advertising tags remain completely dormant until the user explicitly grants permission for storage and personalization.
Let me push back on the reality of this, though. If everything defaults to denied and visitors just ignore the banner or hit reject, doesn't my marketing data just fall off a cliff?
That's a huge fear.
Right, because how do I even know if my campaigns are profitable if half my buyers are invisible?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you've just identified the exact reason Google developed enhanced conversions. We are leaving the era of absolute one-to-one tracking where every click has a name attached. We're entering the era of modeled signals.
Modeled signals, so educated algorithmic guessing.
Basically, yeah. Because denied users underreport data, enhanced conversions takes first-party data from users who did consent, like the email address or phone number they typed into the checkout, and securely hashes it.
Hashing basically scrambles the email into a string of unrecognizable characters, right? So instead of sending john@example.com, it sends a cryptographic puzzle.
Right. It is entirely unreadable to anyone intercepting it. Google receives that hashed string, scrambles its own massive database of logged-in users using the exact same mathematical formula, and looks for a match. Yeah. When it finds one, it quietly connects the ad click to the purchase, recovering a conversion signal that would have otherwise been lost to ad blockers or strict privacy settings. It bridges the gap without relying on fragile third-party browser cookies.
That's wild, but bridging that gap requires an incredibly complex setup. You've built the split architecture, you've deduplicated your order IDs, you've wired up consent mode v2. How do you actually know if this intricate machine is functioning? Because the source material is very blunt. You cannot just trust a green checkmark in a preview tool.
No, absolutely not. A green checkmark in a testing interface is a dangerous comfort. It only confirms the tag fired on your end. It tells you absolutely nothing about what data was actually transmitted or if the receiving platform accepted it.
Okay, so how do we check it?
Verification requires 4 distinct steps, and they must all agree. Stage 1 is the Google Tag Assistant.
Okay, so you walk through the storefront as a fake customer viewing a product, adding it to the cart. You're ensuring the GTM container loads only once per page, and that your tags fire in the correct sequence.
Right. Then Stage 2 gets much deeper. The GA4 debug view. This is where you inspect the e-commerce payloads. You need to verify that the data packet actually contains the monetary value, the currency code, the transaction ID, and the items array.
Let's clarify that term, items array. That's simply the digital receipt listing exactly which products were in the cart.
Exactly.
The guide warns that if your items array is missing or broken, the data is useless for merchandising. If Google knows someone spent $100 but has no idea what shirts they bought, you cannot build a retargeting audience for those specific shirts.
Spot on. Now, the third stage is what the source calls the absolute ground truth, the network panel in your browser's developer tools.
Which sounds intimidating, but it's just looking at the raw data leaving your computer, right?
Yeah, precisely. Previews and browser extensions often lie or show cached data. The network panel shows the actual raw HTTP requests flying from your browser to Google's servers. If you filter for collect requests or Paget or meta requests, you can literally see the final data packet in transit.
Okay, and the final stage.
The final stage tackles the locked bank vault. You test the checkout progression entirely separately from the storefront tags using Shopify's customer events test mode in the admin panel.
So, what does this all mean for the person trying to launch their store by Friday? Can they skip step 3 and 4 if the basic tag assistant says everything is fine and green?
I firmly warn against this. Doing that is essentially flying blind. Your tag might fire perfectly in the preview, but if the currency code is formatted as a lowercase string instead of uppercase, the destination platform will silently drop the request.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Or it might transmit the wrong consent state. You must run all 4 stages. And frankly, you have to audit deduplication one day after live traffic starts. You pull your actual Shopify order count and compare it side by side with your GA4 purchases and Google Ads conversions.
That side-by-side comparison is the ultimate moment of truth. Okay, we have covered some serious ground today. Installing GTM on Shopify in 2026 is a hybrid beast. You manage the public storefront through your theme files, you handle the secure checkout through customer events, you vigorously enforce deduplication so you aren't paying a tax on phantom sales.
Yep.
Consent Mode V2 dictates the entire flow of data, and you absolutely must endure that 4-step diagnostic journey before trusting your dashboards. Emphasize to yourselves that doing this right is the difference between flying blind and having a crystal clear map of your business.
It provides immense operational clarity. But there's a brief mention in the source material that really points to where this entire industry is heading, and it raises an important question. The guide touches on server-side GTM.
Taking the container entirely out of the visitor's browser.
Right, moving the whole tagging pipeline off the shopper's browser entirely. As browsers get even stricter with privacy, and server-side hosting like Stape or Cloud Run becomes cheaper, we have to wonder, are we looking at the final days of browser-based tracking altogether? In a few years, will placing a pixel on a website seem as outdated as writing a customer's credit card number on a piece of paper?
That is a wild paradigm-shifting thought to end on. We are so obsessively focused on these browser tripwires right now, but the near future of e-commerce data might exist entirely behind the curtain, server to server. For now, though, we highly encourage you to go look under the hood of your own Shopify store. Audit those tagging apps, hunt down any leftover ghost pixels, and enjoy the clarity of clean data.
And not a millisecond before.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the invisible mechanics of Shopify tracking. We'll catch you next time.